I've got a little festive treat for you today, guys. I'm going to show you how we can achieve a multi-column layout using just one accordion. So this is a 2-column layout, and then down here I've got a 3-column layout as well. And this is great because usually you'd need 2 separate accordions to achieve a layout like this, or 3 for this layout, because the accordion widget just comes with 1 column, which can be a bit annoying because this is quite a common sort of design, especially for something like FAQs. So I'll show you how we can achieve this today using just a little bit of CSS, and I'll show you as well how you can achieve it if you're a pro user or you're just using Elementor free. So let's get into it. So I'm back on my editing page now. So this is my accordion widget. Within each item, I've just got a text editor widget because this is just going to act as an FAQ. If you're wondering what my settings are, I've got item position stretch, and I've got the icon position as end. I've left the default icons, and then within interactions, I've just got the default state as all collapsed. Within style, I've just set up a gap, a space between items of 1 rem, and then I've just set some custom colors as well. But now to get to the good stuff, to get this working as a multiple column layout, for pro users, you'll just have to go into advanced, click on custom CSS, and I'll provide this code in the video description, but within this code pen, it's just this code at the top here. So if you copy this in, and I'll explain what this is doing, paste it into your custom CSS, and you'll see straight away it's working across 2 columns. So just going through what the code's doing now. First of all, it's wrapped within this media query, which tells it to only apply the multiple columns on screens larger than tablet portrait, because you'll notice that if you keep it on all the way down to mobile, it can get a little bit cramped having multiple columns. So what this does is it just means it'll return to its default 1-column state on smaller devices. Obviously, you can change that to whatever you decide. Next, we've got our display set to grid, and this essentially is how the whole thing works, because it lets us set in this declaration here the number of columns that we want to use. So you'll see here I've got repeat 2, 1 fraction. So this means 2 columns. So if I change this to 3, it'll go to 3 columns and so on. You can choose the exact number of columns you want. So for now, I'll just leave it as 2. The next declaration here is the column gap. And what you'll see here is I've pre-populated it with a variable, because this variable is one that Elementor creates from the value you set within your accordion style space between items. So that variable is pulling 1 rem, because 1 rem is the row gap. So what I've done is I've matched the row gap you choose to the column gap that should be in between your columns. So I'll just show you, for example, if I set the row gap or space between items to 2, the column gap then matches it and goes to 2. So I thought that'd just be easier than you manually having to type the value in the code. It just pulls it through using a preset variable. However, if you do want to change this to something else, you can just manually enter a new value. So if I put 50 pixel here, you'll see the column is now 50 pixels wide. Or sorry, the column gap rather. But for me, I'm just going to leave it as that variable. Now you'll see here, I've got a comment for this next bit of code that says optional if required. And what I mean by that is you'll only need this next bit of code that sets a minimum height value if you have accordion titles that span different line numbers. So most of my accordion titles, they span 2 lines, but some of them are just spanning 1 line, like this one here and this one. So because of that, if I don't set this bit of code here, I'll just comment it out and show you what happens. You'll notice that the ones that only span 1 line, they don't grow to fill the space, which means it can look quite messy because you end up with these big gaps. So the way to avoid that is to manually set the minimum height of the titles. So to find the minimum height value that you need to set, you need to go to the front end and measure the height of the box that spans the most number of lines. So for me, that's any of these boxes that span 2 lines. So I'm just going to right click on the page and clicking inspect down here. And then once I'm inspecting the page, you can click on this little icon here, select an element in the page to inspect it, and then just float over one of these boxes that span 2 lines, And you'll notice there it says 582 by 79.59. So that 79.59 is the height I need. So I'm just going to round it up to 80. And that's why I've selected 80 here. But if you need to do the same, that's how you work out the height that you need. So if I was to now set this to a 3-column layout instead, you'll notice that 80 pixels is no longer high enough. So if I just preview this page, and we'll do the same again, we'll inspect the page. And then I'll drag this down to just above the breakpoint, because it's at this point we'll have the most amount of lines for our titles. So I think that's just around here. You'll see we've got titles that span 4 lines. So again, I'll just click on this button here to inspect the element, and you'll see it says 137.19. So for that value, I'm just going to put in 138 pixel as my minimum height. And once I've done that, you'll see that now they span 3 columns and they're all the same height at 138 pixels. One thing to note, obviously, if you've got a layout like this, I'd recommend a number that divides by 3 so you don't end up with a little isolated accordion box down here. So that's how we achieve this using Elementor Pro. Now for free users, there's just a couple of slight differences. So I'll just reset this accordion back to its default state. So the first thing to do for free users, go back to the code pen and you'll notice this section here with the comment non-pro users. So within here, you'll need to copy this class, which says accordion-split. Make sure you don't copy across the full stop. It's just the text itself. And then go back to your edit page, click on layout under the advanced tab. And then within here, you can copy that class into this CSS classes box. So once you've copied that in, go back to your dashboard, make sure you publish this, but go back to your dashboard, and then within here, you can just add the custom CSS under appearance and customize. And once we get to this menu, you'll see this additional CSS box here. Just ignore what I've got on my screen now, that's irrelevant. But within this additional CSS box, you'll be able to copy the code from the code pen, so the full media query, copy that into this box here. And once you've copied that in and published it, go back to your page. It won't update straight away because you'll have to refresh it. But if we refresh this page now, you'll see on the edit page, it should have loaded and also on the front end as well. So there we go. Here's the edit page up to date. And then if I just preview the changes, the front end, it'll also all be up to date as well. So that's how you get this effect if you're a free user. So let me know if you found this one useful, guys, if you'll be using it on your websites or any client sites. And I hope to see you in the next one.